Hey, I want to welcome you to week one of our new study, Spiritual Warfare. I'm Bob Pittenger, and I will be your host. I enjoy watching old war movies like The Great Escape, Stalag 17, The Guns of Navarone, and I like some of the new ones that came out like a few years ago, Midway. But one of my favorite is about the American Revolution called The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson as Benjamin Martin. In the movie, Benjamin Martin is a colonel over the militia, the American militia, and this is a group of untrained men who don't fight in a conventional manner at all. You know, two armies is what they used to do. Two armies would stand across from each other. One army would load their muskets and fire, then the others would load theirs and return fire. But Martin's militia takes on a more of a Robin Hood or guerrilla warfare style of fighting. They find new ways to take their enemy by surprise and overwhelm them with shock and awe. The British consider their tactics as being beneath gentlemanly, and they ask Martin to change to more acceptable rules of engagement for war. But Martin refuses and continues to use whatever methods he could to disrupt the enemy and continue fighting. This is exactly what Satan does to those of us who love Jesus. Those who serve him, they attack us in the exact same way. They don't worry about what's acceptable, proper, or even expected. They don't care about what is just, right, or holy. In fact, their desire is to attack God by attacking those who are his. They want to inflict us mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, and spiritually. Their goal is to cause us to question God, his love, his power, justice, compassion, his plan for our lives, and even his forgiveness. The entire agenda is to use whatever means necessary to implant doubt in our minds and our hearts. So every difficulty, every trial or hardship we face will be an opportunity for the seed of doubt to begin to grow. That's why it's so important for us to recognize the guerrilla warfare tactics of Satan and those who serve him. The world tries to wear us down through external attacks. It puts things into our path to tempt us, usually things that are neither good nor bad, but the world wants us to pursue them in an ungodly manner. The world is a constant battlefield between billboards and movies and TV shows, social media, song lyrics, sports, politics, and even our jobs. We're constantly bombarded with the temptation of so many different things. If we're not expecting the attack or ready for it, we can easily fall right into the world's traps. Then we find ourselves wondering, what happened? I was going along just fine, and the next thing I know, I've made a bad decision and I'm stuck in the middle of a mess I should have seen coming. Our old sinful nature, with its selfishness and internal cravings, is another battlefield where we will be attacked. When we become Christians, our spirit is renewed and refocused when we receive the indwelling Holy Spirit from God. With the Holy Spirit's help, we spend the rest of our days crucifying our old sinful flesh with all its worldly desires. Nevertheless, since we are still incarcerated in this flesh, we will be in a constant battle to bury our old sinful fleshly desires. This is why the spiritual disciplines are so important. But what are the spiritual disciplines? Well, Bible study, prayer, worship, evangelism, serving, stewardship, fasting, silence and solitude, which is a lot of like meditation, journaling, and then learning are just a few. Now, please know, we do not follow the exercise of the spiritual disciplines to be righteous, but because we are righteous. Let me say that again. We do not exercise the spiritual disciplines to make us righteous or right before God. We do them because we are right before God, and it's who we are in him. Our renewed spirit longs for righteousness, so we need to obey God's commands. As we see them, one of them in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, where we're told to train yourself to be godly. The word train here is the Greek word gymnazo, which is where we get our word gymnasium. Growing in godliness or Christ-likeness is like exercising. It's something we have to work at, train, discipline, and exercise our way in order to live a godly life. The spiritual disciplines will strengthen our ability to defeat our flesh. And one of the best books on learning that I've ever read is on the topic of spiritual disciplines is Spiritual Disciplines for the Christian Life by Donald Whitney. I've sent your group leader an Amazon link that they can forward to you if you want to get this book. It is a great study. Now, don't rush through this book. Read one chapter a week and then practice it. If you just try to read the book straight through, you're not going to get anything out of it. You need to read one chapter of the Spiritual Disciplines for the Christian Life each week and then practice it as you go along. So we can also face vicious demonic attacks in our lives. That's another battlefield we have. You see, they hate anyone who's committed their life to God. They find their greatest joy when you give in to their temptations. What makes demonic attacks so fierce? It's the way they come after us. These evil spirits know you. They know your desires, your weaknesses. They've honed their craft over thousands and thousands of years. What worked on somebody 2,000 years ago will work on you today. The attack you will face has been specifically devised to break you down over time. Why? Because it's personally designed to attack you. They start with accusations to make you doubt God's love, your ability to live for God, and that God's plan is best for you. That temptation isn't that bad. You ever heard somebody say, oh, it's not that bad? They want you to think that. Or, hey, it's not going to hurt anyone. They try to get your mind focused on the temporal rather than the eternal. They want you backed into a temptation corner until you believe there's no way out, so why not just get it over with and commit the sin? Their tactic is always, always, always to wear you down. So how do we survive these types of battlefields? Well, first, I believe we need to run to God. Run to your passion for holiness and purity and godliness. Run toward the spiritual disciplines of Bible study and prayer and worship, meditating on specific Bible promises, or talk with an accountability partner and share what you're going through. Listen to the promise of 1 Corinthians 10:13. The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptations to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, He will show you a way out so you can endure. He's always going to show you a way out. He's always going to provide a way of escape. So we need to remember there is always, always a way of escape. So when temptation comes, we need to run to God. However, we won't run unless we recognize when our flesh has been activated. If we have crucified our flesh, we won't allow our old sinful feelings to be rekindled regardless of the temptation. Therefore, we have to recognize when our fleshly desires have been ignited and then run to God. By running to Him, we're allowing God's Spirit to renew our thinking from what it was like prior to our salvation. Ephesians 4:18 and 19 describes those without Christ as, their minds are full of darkness. They wandered far from the life God gives them because they have closed their minds and hardened their hearts against Him. They have no sense of shame. They live for lust, pleasure, and eagerly practice every kind of impurity. Romans 1:32 adds that not only do they do those things that we read in Ephesians, but they encourage others to do the same. They love doing evil, and they love to bring people in to the evil with them. So, to overcome all types of temptation, we must allow the Spirit to renew our thinking. We have to change the way we think. We need to hunger and thirst for God, His ways, His commands, His promises. Our desires for Him needs to be like that of the deer as described in Psalm 42:1 and 2. It says, as the deer longs for streams of water, so I long for you, O God. I thirst for God, the living God. Think about that. A deer is being hunted, he's being pursued, and he's been running and running and running, and now he's thirsty and he's longing for a drink. We are constantly being pursued by our enemy, and we need to long for God in the same way. It's this longing for God that will compel us to exercise ourselves toward godliness and give us God's promised victory on any battlefield that we face. During your discussion time, I pray God will guide you toward a renewed thirst for Him and His righteousness.